we have Brandon Knapp on the show. We've just covered the Lions. We just covered Michigan. What is expected from Brandon, or by Brandon from Michigan? What are his thoughts on the Michigan Wolverines, Jim Harbaugh? So if you have not checked that out yet, check it out. It's posted, and it'll be fun for me to go back and listen to. We covered a lot of stuff. So a few more questions in closing, about the similarities between the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions, and some of the guys that are on the Detroit Lions that stand out to me as guys that I think could make a difference. I want to see what is Brandon's take on these players. So first, the guy that I'm really high on, a guy that I drafted for all the fantasy nerds, if you will, a guy that I drafted in the 5th round. Yes, I did. I drafted him in the 5th round as a rookie. Amir Abdullah. There's a fighter locally. His name's Abdallah. It's Abdullah, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, what is your take on Amir Abdullah? Last season he had some fumbling issues, but in the preseason he really impressed me last year. He was a guy that really stood out. He was a guy that I really wanted to get on my fantasy team. Do you think he is the starter for the Detroit Lions this season?
Yeah, seeing him at camp this year, he was with the ones, so he is definitely going to be our starter. I mean, he was wearing that red jersey. He's still kind of battling with some injuries, but he will easily be our starter by week 1. I think it all really goes onto the offensive line. We had a lot of issues last year. Couldn't really create any holes. I mean, he did have some issues. You can't ignore that. So as long as he can protect the ball, he can become a better player. But he's really got some great speed and some great little quick jukes and spin moves just to create more space and bust out to the open. It's phenomenal to watch. Like you were saying last year in the preseason, he had a great move against the Jets and just went off, I think, for like a 30-40-yard run. It was great. And we didn't really see that besides week 1 against San Diego. He never really had anything else special. So I think he can have a better year. Don't take him in the 5th round.
No.
It's a little too high. But when you still looking back, I wanted to have my fantasy team last year as well. I didn't get him, and I was upset. But, I mean, he still would be a bad choice to have on your bench, have him play once in a while.
Yeah.
That's just me.
I have this fascination in fantasy with rookie running backs. I don't know what it is. I don't really know when it started. I think it started with Adrian Peterson when he was a rookie. I think that year I drafted AP and Lynch. They were both rookies. Wow. Obviously, Lynch was a Buffalo Bill and AP is a Viking. And really, I mean, it makes sense because when a rookie running back is drafted, they're gonna get the ball. They're gonna get their touches. But I was just completely blown away with Amir Abdullah in the preseason, and I had such high hopes for him entering 2015. And he had the fumbling problems and injury problems, and Jim Caldwell kind of had enough of it. So they went with Theo Riddick, and I believe Joyke Bell was still there last year. Is that correct? Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that Amir Abdullah bounces back, and hopefully I didn't give away my fantasy strategy as far as who I might take. This is a crazy thought. In fantasy for me, every time I do a random draw where, me and my buddies get together and we do a random draw, we're pulling names out of a hat, and I'm the commissioner of my league. Every time we do a random draw and we put names, on a piece of paper, crumple them up or whatever, my name gets picked first for the first pick, and I hate having the first pick more than anything because you have that snake draft. I'm in a snake draft this year in a 12-team league, and I'm picking first, and I'm undecided. Yeah, it's going to be awful. I'm undecided as to who I should take, whether I take Antonio Brown or do I keep the tradition of putting big picks into rookie running backs and take Ezekiel Elliott. What is your take on that crazy decision, if there is one?
Well, I haven't even done any mock drafts to even think who I want to draft this year, so I haven't thought or anything. But if you want to go between Elliott and Brown, I mean, Elliott just did suffer an injury. I don't think it's anything major. I think it's minor. Yeah. He does have a really good offensive line in Dallas. Mm-hmm. But Antonio Brown, he's going to have even more opportunities with Martavis Bryant out for the year.
True.
Possibly Le'Veon Bell out for 4 games. So I would definitely go Antonio Brown because he's a safe measure and also a Central Michigan alumni.
Yeah, and that was another. That's kind of why I brought that up. I noticed on your Twitter when I requested you and asked you to come on the show, which I really appreciate, and you've been great. I definitely plan on having you on again, throughout the season, to talk about the Lions and other stuff around the NFL. But yeah, Central Michigan guy. And that's a guy, he's a Central Michigan guy, much like yourself, and he was undrafted, if I'm not mistaken. Why? What is it about small school guys? Khalil Mack was a guy that came out of the University of Buffalo, and I remember when he was first recruited and when he was first brought on to UB, nobody knew who he was. Nobody. Like he had a big name. He was a big name out of Florida, in high school, but went really unnoticed heading into the Division I scene. What is it about guys like Antonio Brown from Central Michigan? And even though Khalil Mack was a first-round pick, he really had to play lights out in order to get that recognition. Why do you think that is with college football and scouting and things like that?
I really think it's because you have 120 plus teams in Division I, and majority of the really best players go to the best schools, like your Alabama, your Ohio State, Michigan, etc. So then you look at the MAC. The WAC doesn't exist. You got the Sun Belt and the Mountain West. Those two, conferences, they're looked as okay, they're good, but they're not as Big Ten, SEC, ACC type of players. So they don't probably give them as much time, as much looking as they should. Maybe as a 6th, 7th round pick, they don't look for these players to be a 1st, 2nd round talent unless you do lights out performance like Khalil Mack did.
Yeah, and that's
another fun fact, which you probably do know. J.J. Watt also went to Central Michigan before he transferred to.
He went to transfer to Wisconsin. That's right. I knew that, but that slipped my mind. That was a good catch there. But yeah, and it's there's a mold, I feel, with college football that kind of, I don't know if it needs to be shattered, but it needs to be kind of corrected a little bit, as far as the mold of, this guy went to Texas, he's a good player. This guy went to Central Michigan, he might not be that good. An athlete is an athlete. A physical specimen is a physical specimen. No matter what jersey he's wearing, if he's a guy that you think can contribute to your team, in my eyes at least, if I was a GM or a scout or a coach, I would take him. Wouldn't you? That's just
that's definitely a big mindset. You can even compare this to Division II or Division 1A.
Yeah.
You get somebody from even somebody from Akron, Akron Zips, you're probably going to take him more than a guy from Harvard or a guy from Yale, a guy from North Dakota State, South Dakota State.
Yeah.
Just because it's a different division, different type of competition.
And that brings up, running back Fred Jackson. He was running back for the Bills for, 5, 6, 7 years. He was on the Bills for 10, but really as a starter for 5 or 6 years. He went to Coe College, literally statistically the third best running back in Buffalo Bills history. And that says a lot because they've had O.J. Simpson, Thurman Thomas, and really besides those two guys that come to mind, they had Joe Cribbs and a few others that were decent. But really the ones that they've had recently that were really good, like Willis McGahee and Marshawn Lynch, they didn't even make it out of the rookie contract. But Fred Jackson was able to have that longevity here, and that's a guy and another guy that went to Coe College and panned out for an NFL team. My last question, and this moves toward the Michigan effect and the effect of a guy being completely unnoticed by NFL scouts. And in my eyes, he is one of, if not the greatest quarterback of all time, and that's Tom Brady. What is your take on the legacy of Tom Brady in the wake of Deflategate? Final take.
I could talk about this for hours. I have looked into this whole thing so much. You have Chris Mortensen reporting there's 21 out of 26 deflated balls. I can't remember the numbers. And it turns out that's false, but he never comes up and says he was wrong or anything. As a journalist, you've got to admit when you're wrong. And all the people, he's a credible source, all those people believed it. So you got a lot more hype behind it, a lot more on people wanting him to get suspended. And just his only quote-unquote evidence that him doing anything is smashing a cell phone. You realize you can get the cell phone records from the company. If you destroy the cell phone, they could have gotten the phone calls, they could have gotten the text. And there's nothing to prove that he did anything wrong. I am still on that boat. I will always be on that boat. He did nothing wrong, and he just got accused because of Spygate in 2007, which, I mean, that there was proof there, and they deserved whatever that they got handed to them. This thing, though, there's no proof, nothing, and they just get thrown it because they have a legacy of cheating once.
It's one of those things that it honestly, I'm a Bills fan. As a fan, I'm thrilled. I'm happy that Tom Brady's not playing us week 4, I believe.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy. I'll be frank about it. Frankly, I'm happy. But in terms of what's right and what's wrong, I'm not. And realistically, when he was originally said to have, had deflated footballs for the AFC Championship game, it was for the first half, if I'm not mistaken. At halftime, they discovered that those balls were deflated. He had no touchdowns in the first half of that game. With the footballs regulated and, whatever word you want to use, the right amount of air was in those footballs. He threw 4 touchdown passes.
Yep.
So, if he was cheating, that's bad, but he wasn't giving himself an advantage. He was actually giving himself a disadvantage statistically. And there's quarterbacks that come out and say, in the wake of all this crazy story, that say that they overinflate footballs, which was an exact quote from Aaron Rodgers. That's the same thing. That's the same principle.
And do you see Aaron Rodgers getting in trouble? Do you see any of these other people getting in trouble? No. And that's what makes me so angry about this, because Tom Brady, everyone hates him, so as soon as he does something bad, just get suspended. Someone else says it, it's okay, no big deal.
I live by the saying, as a journalist and as a fan, you have to give credit where credit is due. When someone earns credit, you give them their credit. And he has earned so much credit over the course of his career on so many levels. I could go on and on. And he's a guy that has won so much that, frankly, the general public has been sick of it for a long time. But guess what? He's just that good. That's really all there is to it. And this whole Deflategate story, I mean, he took the punishment like a champ. He fought it for as long as he could, like a heavyweight title fight. But he just said, you know what, I'm not going to step out into the ring for this last final round. I'm done, and I don't really blame him. I think Deflategate, much like your thinking, is completely ridiculous. And frankly, I hope in that respect, he's always had, when the chips are down, he's always been able to go beyond his ability and prove more than what he has actually shown. Make no mistake about it, when he comes out of that suspension, he's going to tear this league up. That's a fact. And like I said earlier, the general public might not like it, but guess what? He's just that good. That's the reality of the situation. Well, Brandon, it was great having you on the show. I definitely I'd like to rerun this, do this again throughout the course of the season. We'll do kind of like a Detroit Lions preview if you'd like to come on again. I had a great time talking to you. It's good to have a fellow My Fantasy Sports Talk writer on the podcast. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining me.
Yep. Thank you for letting me be on. I just want to give a quick shout out to my friend Tyler. He's a listener of your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
And I just wanted to say thanks again for having me on. And if you're interested, everyone, check out Thomas's articles on myfantasysportstalk.com. You're really good at UFC talk. I love reading the UFC stuff.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that.
Yep. And then if you're checking for anything else, Detroit Lions, come to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. I have a lot of great stuff coming up. I just wrote something about training camps that should be out in the next day or two. So just come for us for Detroit Lions. Come for My Fantasy Sports Talk for Lions great UFC coverage. Everything else. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the compliments, and I really appreciate you joining me today. Let's go Lions and go Bills. We can agree to that, right?
Yeah, we can agree to that.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was the Thomas Take. I am Ryan Thomas. I was joined by Brandon Knapp. We talked about the Detroit Lions and the Michigan Wolverines, Deflategate. We covered a lot of stuff, a lot more stuff than I had initially planned. But you know what? In talking to Brandon, I just couldn't